Hey everybody, so welcome back to the channel. So I actually just wanted to show you guys the process of actually how you de-rim a tank. So I picked both of these little tanks up from Facebook Marketplace where somebody was pretty much getting rid of them for nothing. So really I just kind of snapped up the chance to get them. And like I mentioned before, always keep an eye out on Facebook Marketplace. You'll pick up some amazing deals, or you'll actually just be able to pick up some stuff for free. So there is a bit of a process to doing this, to take this off. Really all I'm going to remove is the top rim. I'm going to keep the bottom rim on, but the top rim is pretty ugly, and as you can see from this aquarium, it's being used at some point, and it's actually got bits of white paint stuck in corners and stuff that I'd like to get rid of. So I'm just really going to clean this up, take the rim off, and you know, get going on that. So as we step through this, you'll see that it is kind of possible to crack the tank or break it based off the plastic if you pull too hard on it. So you really have to be careful with that. Luckily for me, this plastic is really old and actually dried out a lot. So there's every time you even pull at it, you can hear it cracking already. So I'll just step through what I've done. Ideally, what you should do is actually cut the corners just here. So if you do have a Dremel, I would advise you guys to just actually Dremel off with the disc through the corners here. That will actually just break this whole thing apart for you, which makes it much easier to pull this off, because underneath this there's actually silicone that's holding it to the glass, and the same underneath here. And what you want to avoid is actually pulling this in such a way that it actually pulls on the glass on the other side and actually cracks it. So like I said, this is easy for me because the silicone is quite dried out. In actual fact, this tank could probably do with a reseal, but I think it's okay for the moment. I've tested it for water and it's good. So I'm just going to take the plastic off and see what it looks like afterwards. So if you just follow me up here, you can see that I've been cracking away at this already and I've been breaking it. So the idea here is to basically just get this apart so you can see the glass underneath. Now if you look here, you can see that this actually has a ton of silicone. And I'm going to have to come with a razor blade and actually get rid of all of this. The other thing about this too is that you have to be careful with the edge of the glass because it's really sharp here. So likely what I'm going to do here is come along with some sandpaper after the fact and actually just try and put a little beveled edge on it so that it's not dangerous for anybody and they won't cut their hands off it. So yeah, I'm just going to start breaking this off now. I'll see if I can actually put this phone up somewhere so you guys can get a better view. Okay guys. So I'm just going to continue on this. Before I actually continue on, I kind of just wanted to show you guys some tools that you're going to need. I get these razor blades actually from Home Depot, and I just bought a pack of them. And I also have a tool that I use for actually, because when I built my aquarium originally, I needed to take all the silicone off after the fact. So you can use acetone and you can use razor blades to do that job. These are basically the blades that you're going to need, like this. And when you take the cardboard off, or the slip off them, you'll see that it's like a regular blade. So with that, these are great for really getting in to take the silicone off things afterwards. You might go through a lot of them because they go blunt really quickly. So I only have a few left here, and I have a good tool as well that I can show you guys. I just need to find it. The tool is basically something that you slip these blades into, and you can use the tool then to get a better grip on the blade to actually get it in. You have to be careful you don't scratch the glass though. So I'm just going to show you guys me taking as much of this off as possible. And also another good tool for this would be sandpaper. I've got some downstairs, so I might come back and actually record some of the sanding as well and give you guys a look at what that looks like. It's always nail biting because you're always afraid that you're going to crack something with this, so you just have to be as careful as you can. Twist back and forth a little bit on this. I can feel big chunky bits inside the inside of it. So if you can break bits of it as you go, it does make the job a little bit easier to break bits off. So as I'm pulling there, I can feel it coming away. There you go. So that's that. I'm hoping I can get it all off in one piece. It'd be much easier. So as I twist back and forth, you can feel it coming. Always good to get your fingers in under the rims, so you can probably hear it coming away there. It looks like somebody tried to seal this back on at some stage. And once once you get a grip like this, guys, you can kind of pull at it and you can feel it kind of pulling away as you pull up on, and you get some leverage on the length of it. So again, just be careful with the corners. If they're not sawing off in the corners, you can actually end up just torquing it too much on the end of the glass and breaking it. There we go. I think we might get a clean pull off altogether. Amazing. Okay, so that's it off. So now that it's off, you can see that there's a lot of silicone still stuck to the glass. So my next job now is going to be to try and clean as much of that off as possible. And once I get all of that off, then hopefully we should have a clean top, and I'll get sanding around the edges of this then. And then I'll show you guys what that looks like after the fact. So just to give you a bit of an idea what you need to do with the blade. So you can probably see some of the silicone there. So I'm just going to use one of these blades to show you how to actually get some of this silicone off. If I can get it out of the packet. So basically what you need to do is just get in underneath this without scratching the glass. So what I tend to do is just push like this. And you can see that that's starting to come off nice and clean now. And then I just need to get in underneath this layer and go with that as well. So obviously you can see that this is going to take a while to get through. This is actually quite a lot of silicone on this, much more than I anticipated actually. So the closer you can get to the edge of the glass, the easier it's going to be for yourself. And then after that, then we'll give it a clean after the fact. So I just want to kind of show you guys too that the edge of this is super sharp, and you really got to be very careful. Some of them, I'm not too sure if when you take them off, they may have a bit of a chamfered edge on it for safety, but this one doesn't, unfortunately. So I'm hoping once I get all this off, the edges are all going to look very clean, and it'll look quite nice. So what I'll do is I'll just do a bit of a time lapse of me cleaning up this little piece here and speed it up for you guys. So I've actually managed to get a lot of that silicone off, and I guess a little bit of a tip or a trick to it is to flip the blade over a couple of times as you're working through it. So if you do that, you actually get like the sharper edge, because like I said, these blades tend to go blunt really quickly. But you can kind of get an idea of how it's turning out so far, and you can see that it's actually starting to look really clean around the top now. Obviously there's a lot more that I need to do. It's probably going to take me a while longer to actually get around the whole thing and get this cleaned up. Another thing to watch out for too is that when you actually get into the corners, there was big chunky bits in the corners for me that I had to cut out. So when you're cutting in there, you have to be careful that you actually don't cut right into the seal. It depends on how tall you're going to fill this aquarium. I only intend to fill it probably to about here. So if you're going to fill it any taller than that, if you cut into the seam, just make sure that you're not cutting in too far. Otherwise you could end up getting a leak that you just didn't account for. And another thing to watch out for too is when you get to the edge of the glass, especially if it's not chamfered off already, you can chip the glass really easy if you turn on the blade. So make sure you keep it as straight as possible when you get across. Put a bit of pressure on it. Don't be afraid to put too much pressure. You won't scratch it. You'll only scratch it if you pivot up on an angle. So as long as it's flat to the glass, you should be able to get that silicone right off. Okay guys, so I just want to kind of show you around the edges of this glass, just to show you how sharp. It's probably going to be hard to see, but you can kind of see how sharp the edge of this glass is. So once I'm done cleaning all this, I'm going to pretty much just shave all the sharp edges off with some sandpaper. So I just need to go out to the garage to get that. But you can see now that I'm making progress. I'm pretty much getting around all of it now, and you can see it's starting to look clean. And then these are the big chunky bits I was telling you about in the corners. So obviously somebody has tried to reseal this at some point, and they've just basically pumped a whole load of silicone into the corners. So I'm going to have to remove that out and try and clean that up a little bit. And there is a little bit of work involved in this. It is a bit of a pain, to be honest, to try and clean all this up. But if you just have patience and work at it, you know, you can have a great result at the end. So we'll have a look at it once it's done, and we'll see where we're at. guys, so there you kind of have it there. That's most of the silicone pretty much taken off of it now. So another thing a few things actually I failed to mention, which I should have probably prefaced the whole video with. When you're de-rimming a tank like this, initially when tanks are actually designed, most of them are actually designed to hold a certain amount of water, and they're braced based off that. So for example, this one's a 10 gallon, likely that looks like it's about 4mm glass. So 4mm glass is perfectly fine for a tank, and usually when it's braced it's even stronger. So when you de-rim it, you're actually taking a lot of strength out of it. So what that means is that when you pour the water into it and you fill it up, the water kind of wants to force out on the middle of the glass, which is the weakest point. So on my tank that I actually built downstairs, I actually braced the middle of that. Now you shouldn't need to do it on a 10 gallon like this or anything smaller. You should actually be okay with de-rimming it, and it should be fine. If I was to take the rim off the bottom of it, that would actually even weaken it even further. But because the rim is being left on the bottom, I'm kind of inclined to just leave it as it is on the top without putting a brace in. So yeah, pretty much this is ready to go now. I just need to start to clean up around the edges, do a bit of sanding on the corners, which are super sharp. So what I actually want to do first is actually sand them, because when you sand them, it actually allows you to run the blade across the top of the glass much easier without actually chipping the glass. Another thing too to keep in mind is that when you're actually running the blade across the top of the glass, which you probably saw me doing the time lapse, that actually takes the sharpness out of the blade and it kind of goes a bit blunt. So the more you do that, the worse it gets. So a little bit of a tip on that, I would keep one of your blades for taking off all the heavy crud around the sides of it, and doing a lot of the heavy work. But then I would take a second blade and do the cleanup at the very end with the you know, the sharp edges and stuff like that, because you want to keep one that's still fairly sharp and then another one that's been kind of gone a bit blunt from trying to do corners and stuff. That way you get to keep one good sharp one, which you can use to take off the really hard to get off stuff. So that's just a little tip for you. I've found that worked particularly well when I built the tank as well, the one that I built downstairs. So anyway, I'm going to keep on going with this. I'm going to give it a clean up now. As you can see as well, I'm going to try and fix this, but there's a lot of white paint in the seal corners here, and it looked like at some stage somebody tried to paint this white. The plan that I have for this is I'm actually going to paint the back of this in black. So it's going to be like a matte black, just one side of it, which will be the back of it. And that will give it a bit more of a classy look. So I'll be doing that at the end, but I'm going to try and clean that white paint out of the gaps. But again, this is what you get for nothing online. So if you pick it up for nothing, you know, you kind of got to work with it and do the best that you can. Okay guys, so the next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a bit of sanding. So I've got some 120 grit sandpaper that I have from my little mouse sander downstairs. And I'm going to just dip this in some hot water. It doesn't have to be hot, you can just use any water. And the reason I'm going to do that is because water helps to take a bit of the roughness out of it. 120 is not really that gritty of a sandpaper in comparison to some, so it's pretty much ideal for this. And then I also have a bowl of hot water and a scrubbing pad, which I'm going to use to take off the rest of the silicone. If that doesn't work, I'm going to go a little bit harder and get some acetone to clean off whatever's left. So I'm going to get to it right now, and I'll just show you a little time lapse. Okay guys, just another tip as well with this is that when you're holding the sandpaper, make sure you hold it at a 45-degree angle as you go along the edge, because if it slips down, you're going to scratch the glass really badly. What I tend to do is I'll get my fingers right underneath and tip them against the glass as I'm at 45. That means that it gives that buffer so that I don't actually get down to scratch the glass. Just be careful of your fingers going around it as well. This isn't really going to bevel it so that, you know, it's like beveled glass. When it's done, you can barely see the impact that this sandpaper has, but it just takes that sharp edge out. Okay guys, so now we're going to move on to just scrubbing with the scrubber and the hot water. I'm going to see if I can get rid of the mess around the top of this now and get it all cleaned up. huge difference in this since I've scrubbed it down, and then I went over the second time with the blade. The good thing about scrubbing it down is that it actually heats up whatever's left of the silicone on the glass, and then pretty much the blade will just take off the rest. So there's still a little bit of a ways to go to get this fully clean, and plus I also want to get in and get all that white stuff out of the joints. But once I get that done, I should be pretty much ready to go and paint the back of this. Hey guys, so just to wrap up the video, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit how I finished this up. I actually ended up taking off the bottom section of the rim, and at the start of the video I talked about if you remove that off you can weaken the tank down, but I've actually, it came off super easy, and it was actually really loose, like it was falling off anyway, so I just thought I'd get rid of it and just clean it up. So as you can see in the background there, it's actually starting to look quite well now. I've cleaned it up as much as possible. Still a bit of white paint stuck in some of the joints, but I'm actually going to see if I can scrape some more of that out. Worst case scenario, what I'll probably do is just get some matte black paint, and I'll just tape it all off and then paint right on those edges down the sides. So it just kind of takes the look off it and makes it look more like it's just a siliconed joint. So just with regards to strength and stuff like that, I've actually taken a look online, and I don't think it's actually going to take away any of the integrity of the strength. So I'm actually going to take a chance with it. I think it should be okay. I've yet to fill it with water, do a water test. I've put some substrate in at the moment. I've ordered my plants online, and that's going to be my next video actually, is I'm going to start talking about the plants that I'm going to put in here. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, listen guys, if you like this video, if you enjoyed it, if you found it helpful, I would love a thumbs up and a subscribe. Gonna try and get some more content out soon. Plants should be here during the week. I'll start getting through that and showing you guys how I intend to plant this up. I also need to go digging around for some hardscape for this as well. This time I'm gonna try and go super cheap with this aquarium. I spent a fortune on the last one, so I'm actually gonna try and do a bit of a cheaper option where I'm gonna go out and find the hardscape. And I'll show you guys how you actually get rid of the creepy crawlies out of it and make sure that it's good to go. So thanks a million guys. Please subscribe, please give it the thumbs up. I'll chat to you next time, and thanks so much for tuning into the channel. Take it easy.